Hey, it's Stephanie. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Unwritten. I think something that I've been missing with all of my intros is who I am. So I'm Stephanie. I'm a photographer. I love helping women feel confident and beautiful and celebrate their selves. I'm also a soon-to-be author. And I am super excited because I have Dr. Mara Doughty-Seals here today.
Hello.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be here.
I am so glad you're here too. So we were chatting before, and what's awesome about having you on right now is that you are at a crossroads in your life, right? We don't, we'll talk about that for just a second. But what I really wanted you here was to talk about pet grief because it's such a relevant subject for especially women who want to hold everything together. We want to hold on. We want to make sure the people around us don't feel sad and suffer. So your past life, you owned Hilldale Veterinary Clinic
Yes.
for almost, well, partly, but for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And now you have a new venture. So talk about your new venture, because I think a lot of people have been, at least in Baraboo, have been talking about the old Plutz building. So could you just chat about that for a minute?
Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I've been a veterinarian for almost 30 years, and I just hung up my hat last week, and I feel like I've never defined myself as being a veterinarian. I think generations, and usually they were men in the profession, their identity and their profession were all in one. And my feeling was it is my identity, but it isn't my whole identity. And so as I knew that at some point I wanted to do something else or have a chance to be someone else, I started thinking, who is that and what does she want to do? And one of my very best friends and I had become friends because we had bonded over similar life experiences and started talking a couple of years ago about what that would look like. And she had always had the idea that she saw a lot of opportunity and beauty in downtown at the old Lutz building. And so when the opportunity came up, sadly, when Mrs. Plutz died, she was able to reach out to the family and make an offer on the building. And because she had done a lot for the Plutz family over the years and they knew who she was and her integrity, they sold her the building. And then she very generously gave me the opportunity to come on board. And so now I get to use some of the skills I learned, not as a veterinarian, but running a business and having a business and creating something that is beautiful for downtown Baraboo. We both feel like we owe Baraboo a lot because Baraboo supported us over the years. And so it's just really exciting to be able to create a space or use a different part of myself and do things that are interesting and challenging and see who the real me or this new chapter is going to be.
And what is something that you've learned about yourself since you started this project that you maybe surprised you?
That I don't know as much as I think I know. I'm always surprised at, I've always felt like I was fairly intuitive, but I've learned that I need to let others talk more and just listen. And I've really enjoyed meeting different people that were in the community that I didn't know before, but making connections with them. And I also, veterinary medicine keeps you very humble. And so this is another way to stay humble because the way I think things should go are not always the way things should go. And so I'm trying to use those challenges as opportunities to move forward.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. You have to keep learning and keep challenging yourself, I think. Otherwise, it's too easy to get stagnant. And as you get older, it's easier and easier to get stagnant. So I like a challenge.
Yeah. And what is it like being in downtown Baraboo? Because you were kind of on the outskirts and kind of in your own little area now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll tell you my experience with downtown Baraboo.
Yeah, please do.
I feel very vulnerable and very almost naked when I'm in downtown Baraboo because it's such a small area and I feel like everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So there's no bullshitting.
Yeah.
Like you gotta, you gotta have, you gotta be real. You gotta, or they're gonna see right through you. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. I feel like, so before I moved to Baraboo, well, when I graduated from vet school, I took an internship in Washington, D.C. and worked there for 1.5 years in medicine and surgery. And I didn't know anybody. It was a really lonely 1.5 years. And so I ended up moving back to Wisconsin and choosing towns where I thought I could practice the best medicine. And through serendipity, I ended up here. And I mean, I think it's very important to be real, and people know when you're genuine and when you're not genuine. And that's something I always try and impart to my employees was, you may have all the knowledge in the world in your head, but you have to care about people. You have to listen to them and you have to care. And so I think that's really interesting that you said, people know who you are, so you better be your best self. But I feel like you probably are your best self. And, you are who you are. I am who I am.
yeah.
And, as long as you do right by people, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a family dynamic downtown.
So I'm excited to make more connections and see more people and talk to more people and hear stories about the Pletz building and what they know about downtown. So that's exciting for me.
Yeah. It's the talk of the town and in a good way. Yeah. Everyone's talking about how beautiful it is. And
yeah, it's been a labor of love, and it's nice to create something for ourselves. I mean, Jennifer, my partner, Jennifer Fox, and I we're doing it for ourselves too, but we also want to inspire other people to be there with us and continue to develop the downtown in a way that seems right for the community.
Yeah. And okay, another off topic, but still on topic, is that can we talk about Bella Vita really quick and all the amazing conversations that happen at Bella Vita? Because I don't even know if I saw you last summer, but a couple summers ago, I saw you a lot. You and Jennifer were, talking about life. And my friend Lacey and I, we have had the best conversations sitting outside Bella Vita. So just kudos to them, right?
Well, it was funny. I told the story. I'm sure people have heard the story, but 20 years ago, Jennifer was running. She had started Wild Apples, and I was working at Hilldale. And at that time, we were taking call 24/7, and so she and I would work. And then Saturday nights, we would call each other and just talk about our week and how we survived it. And we'd both be laying on our couches in our separate homes and kvetching and, talking about what went right and what went wrong. And that's how our friendship developed. And, then she had a baby and wanted to have a lifestyle where she could spend more time with her daughter. And so she and her husband created something that they could do that. But I think, she was so talented with her vision for floral design and for gifts that I know she wanted to get back to it. And so we would park in front of the Plutz building sometimes and talk about what we wanted to do. And then, we'd meet every Friday and kind of make notes and talk it out. And so, then she was much braver than I was. She was ready to make the leap. She made the leap, and she had confidence that the good stuff will fall into place. So I don't know if you've ever seen I have it on a magnet on my refrigerator, leap and the net will appear. And that's what she did. And I felt that was so brave of her. And so she brought me in, and it's been a chance for us to work together professionally as well as supporting each other personally. And so it's just been, it's been a blast. It's been really cool.
Well, I will say that you might be giving her the kudos for being brave, but you also are being very brave by starting over. Right?
Well, it might be fear. It might be fear of being.
They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
But you are. I mean, changing your career path is very brave, and you're doing it, especially as a woman. I'm sure you fought very fiercely to have your business and have your position in the community as a veterinarian, and you were willing to say, you know what, that's not me anymore. Let's figure out what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I loved what I did. So very grateful to be able to do it. So very grateful to be in people's lives. I would tell my clients that it was a privilege, and it really was, because just as I felt so disconnected in Washington, D.C., I felt the absolute opposite of that here. People trusted me. I would see them. I would see their kids, their grandkids, their cousins, their friends. I always just really appreciated the connection and being there for them. And, unfortunately, euthanasia or dying pets is part of it. And so I was very grateful to be able to be there for people at the end of their pet's life too.
And when I messaged you about the possibility of being on my podcast, you had said that often pet grief is worse than people grief. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, the flippant answer is, well, a lot of us like our pets better than our family members, and everybody kind of laughs at that. But there is some truth to it. I mean, your dog or cat observes you all the time, deeply. They pick up on our subconscious cues, and in some ways, and there's a reason we call my field companion animal medicine. I mean, these are companions. They're always happy to see you. They're sad when you leave. They make an effort to communicate, and they understand us better maybe than we do them, since they're I don't want to say nonverbal. That's not right. If you know my dogs, you would know that there's a lot of verbosity. They're always there. I talk to my dogs. I joke with my dogs. I sing to my dogs. And, as much as I love my family members, it's my dogs that sometimes I feel get me. And I, of course, am surrounded by family and friends who understand the love of an animal. I've had lots of clients over the years who either grew up in a family that didn't value a bond or didn't have pets, or were taught that that's having a pet, loving a pet is a weakness. And so I've had lots of clients over the years that didn't feel safe to express what their animal meant to them and didn't have support afterwards. And those were really heartbreaking too, because I think that that's really important to be surrounded by people who get it and understand the value of having an animal that you love.
Something that's coming up as we're talking is that, I mean, there's different reasons pets pass away. And, sometimes it's because they're really old. And I think that's got to be really hard as well, because that means we're making up the choice for our animals, pet to pass. So how do you kind of navigate that as the pet's aging? How do you navigate that conversation, or how did you navigate that conversation? Or
well, you as a veterinarian, you always have to meet people where they are. I was very lucky that I had been there long enough that I had been through the circle of life, so to speak, with lots and lots of my clients. And so I helped them say goodbye to a beloved pet. I was there for the joy of getting the new pet, and then watching the pet grow and age throughout its life before we had to say goodbye again. I guess actually at the end, that was one of the things that was easier at the end of my career, because I'd known these people, my clients, for so long. Like I knew who they were, they knew who I was, and I could be straight with them. And a lot of times, really, the statement is, I know how much you love, Fluffy. You have always brought Fluffy into me. I know how much you care for Fluffy, and you should know that it's okay to make a decision if you think Fluffy's suffering. It's okay to make a decision, even though it's hard, if you're having a hard time watching your pet decompensate over time. You don't have to time your euthanasia perfectly. And really the other one was, especially for women, is you don't have to feel guilty that you're making this decision. Because I know that you love her. I know that you love him. And it's okay. And so, I really wish in vet school I wish we had had a year of therapy, maybe for ourselves, because then it would help us counsel clients. And I really wish we had had a year of working at Walmart, because maybe the most profound thing we do is counsel people at the end of their pet's life, more than any scientific knowledge we've got in our brains.
yeah, I mean, those moments are the hardest moments, when my dog, I had to put him down like 2 years ago now, because he was really old, and he stopped eating and stopped drinking, and all this stuff. And it was like the hardest decision. But then after he passed, and it was so calm and peaceful, it was like, okay, I know that I made the right choice for him. It was actually quite beautiful.
Yeah.
But waking up that morning knowing I had to make the call was like, oh.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you say that. There's almost some relief that happens after they're gone, because the lead up to it is just so awful and so painful. And so that's another thing I really try and tell clients, is that if you feel better after, that's okay. You don't have to feel guilty that you're not suffering. That's all good. It doesn't mean that you didn't make the right decision. It probably means that you did make the right decision.
And After that moment happens, do you people do different things, but what are some of the more healthy decisions that someone can make after their pet passes? Do you have any? I'm sure you've seen a lot. So any?
Um, well, I think you just have to first feel what you're going to feel. And however long you feel it is fine, because nobody would criticize you for grieving the loss of a parent for 18 months. I mean, and yet we think that we can feel better in 2 weeks after, we love our beloved, our dog or cat. So I think one is you have to say, okay, I know this is happening. I have to feel it. I have to express it. I have to validate it. If I can, I should try to be around people who can support me. And then a lot of times people have another pet. And so then they say, well, what do I do with the other pet? And I think it's really good for both you and the other pet to spend time together. And, if it's a dog, go for a walk. If it's a cat, make sure you have some play times or extra play times to keep them occupied. Me personally, I had 2 dogs. This was before I was married, and I was on call all the time. And my dogs were my life. And so I was actually, and the dogs came to work with me. So all we knew was home and work, home and work, home and work. And then they got sick one after the other and died over the course of 3 years. So I watched them get sick, nursed them through their illness, and then died. And so then I was alone in my house, and I didn't want to be in my house, and I didn't want to be at work. And so I ended up joining the gym. That was my coping mechanism. So I just happened to choose a healthy one. But really it could have looked like doing more walking, meditating, reading a good book. I read all the Harry Potter books, and then I watched the movies. I watched Game of Thrones. So I did some stuff just to keep my brain occupied. And I think that's okay too. I think that's okay. And then I tried to do good things, like my dogs had fleece jackets. So I washed them all and I took them all to the shelter, because I thought there'd probably be a dog there that had short fur that might be cold, and maybe its new owner, it could go home with some fleece jackets. So, I kind of did those things where I could improve another animal's life. So those would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I love all that. And I think, so I spend more time at the dog park talking to people with dogs than I do any place else these days. And something that we sometimes talk about is that, doing the things we can't do because we have an elderly dog, right? So there's a couple down there, and they're excited to go kayaking again or biking.
Yeah.
There is things we can't do, especially as our pets age, because we have to take care of them.
Right. That's a great point. And those people should absolutely not feel guilty that they can enjoy these things again. I mean, I really think, most of us who have pets and know how much our pets adore us, they would want us to be happy.
That's so true. Yeah.
So I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. As a matter of fact, I did not want another dog. I was so broken by losing my dogs. It wasn't until I got married. We had been married for a year or two, and my husband said, I really want a dog. I said, I don't want a dog. You're gonna love the dog more than me. I can't do it again. Can't do it again. But he's a good husband. So he said, okay. So we got a dog. And of course now I can't imagine my life without this dog.
Yeah.
So, and it's different because now I have a loving partner that I don't have to go through it alone. So that was that was something that I thought of too. That was different. Okay, well, yes, I'm going to lose this dog, and it's going to break me, but I rely on the people around me to help me, and that'll be okay. And I really do hope everybody has someone out there that they can rely on or talk to.
Yeah, and a lot of times people that have pets, they don't,
Right.
through trauma,
Yeah.
abuse, they only feel safe with their pets.
Right.
So it's a challenging space that you were in. I want to kind of go back into self-care a little bit. So after a particularly bad day at the clinic,
Mm-hmm.
is it kind of similar to what you would do? If you had a kind of a heartbreaking case, would you go home and kind of do the same thing, go to the gym,
Yes.
open a book?
Yeah. What I do now is I sit on the floor and I play ball with my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have that interaction with me. I want to have that interaction with them. I need to get out of my headspace. Whatever you can do, most people know what's good for them and what they think they can accomplish. So, I mean, honestly, if it's sitting and meditating for 10 minutes or doing breath work, if it's, watching, going through your Instagram feed for a while just to give yourself mind candy, if it's sitting on the floor and playing with your dog. And I like to put music on and have music playing and sing along to the music. It doesn't have to be really extravagant.
So it's just kind of giving yourself permission to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the guilt.
Right.
We don't want to feel okay. We feel bad, but there are those little cracks, I guess, in that grief that we can take that breath and let the light in a little bit and, embrace the now, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. One thing that I'm trying to do is be more mindful. And so I'm trying to either zoom in at the moment just so I can appreciate the moment, or zoom out if something's happening that, I'm not super happy about. I just have to see the big picture. And can I just say something about men and grief, as long as we're talking about...
Yeah. It's a podcast, so you can talk about whatever you want.
Okay. This is maybe one of the areas in our culture and life where, men are not taught to be okay with showing grief. And I really feel for, for anybody that thinks they can't show grief. And not that they have to, they don't owe it to me to show me grief in the exam room. That's not what I mean. I mean, I really am touched, or I really feel for people who can't express to me or themselves or their family members what they're feeling and how sad they are.
Mm.
And I've had male clients, sometimes they get angry, and I know they're not angry at me, they're angry at the situation. Or one time it haunts me. I had a father and son, and it was a kitty who needed to be put to sleep, and the father was acting like it wasn't a big deal, and his 7-year-old son was sitting there listening, watching every word. And man, I just thought, oh, I wish you could teach your son something different than what you're showing him. I do have to say that it is better. I really enjoy my younger clients because they are more willing and able to express their emotions. But that was always something that was very sad to me, is not feeling like they could express what they were feeling.
Or that it comes out as anger, which isn't super healthy.
No.
Do you have any suggestions? Because the majority of my listeners are women, to help their people around them.
Well, I think it comes from us. learning to be vulnerable and express what you're feeling, and letting your partner know that it's okay to express what they're feeling. I have to struggle with, if I'm willing to talk about something and my husband isn't, it doesn't mean that he doesn't want to talk about something. It just means that maybe he doesn't want to talk about it right at this moment when I think it's really, really important. Um, but uh, showing your own vulnerability a lot of times opens up other people.
That's really good. And that's true. It's ending the cycle. I mean, there's a couple different things that are coming to mind, but it's being the light. It's showing it's okay. And that there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to grief. And I think that's probably the biggest part is we don't know what we're going to feel the next day or the next day. So we just think we're always going to feel this immense sadness. And grief isn't like that. Like you're going to feel a loss for a very long time, if not forever, but new things come in, right? With every...
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's okay to feel better too.
Right. Yeah. Do the things that make you feel good, right? Like you were talking about, you don't have to feel bad just because you feel bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And so from my experience with my dog, and I was going to take a year off before I got another dog because I was going to travel and do all these amazing things. And I gave it, I think I gave it about 4 or 5 months. And I was just like, you know what? I miss having a dog.
Yeah, you were ready.
I was ready. And because I had done rescues for so long, I was like, I'm going to actually get a dog, a puppy from a breeder, a reputable breeder. But I felt so guilty for getting this purebred puppy. And I felt like I was, that I was doing something wrong. And I think it's funny because we were just talking about that. Like, there's no wrong.
Right.
You just...
I mean, the puppy was going to be born anyway. People pay breeders to let dogs have sex. So, I think it's okay. And I think if we honestly had any control over, the world, the last I checked, nobody put me in charge. So, I think if I've done both. I think if it speaks to you, I think if you feel strongly about this time you want to get a rescue, then that's great. And, if you want to get a purebred puppy, then get a purebred puppy. It's okay.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
It's okay. And then, give money to a shelter. There's so much gray in the world, and I really sometimes get upset about black and white because very few things are black and white.
Yeah. And I think if I would have just given myself permission to just do the thing that I wanted to do, then that's so what energy wasted.
You took in a baby animal and you gave it a supportive, loving home. And where's your dog now?
He's at the dog park.
Yeah, getting exercise and socialization.
Yeah.
Shame on you. What an awful thing you did.
I had to work through that, those feelings, and even the first few times I would introduce my dog, it's like, oh, well, my last few I just, that story comes out because I felt so guilty for wanting something that I could train myself and didn't have all the baggage,
Right.
My last dog had a ton of baggage.
Well, that's a whole nother.
I know, it's a whole nother podcast.
There's these dogs one of my best former employees, she had lost her beloved dog, 14-year-old dog, best mom, took best care of it, took some time to grieve, went and got a dog from the south that was in a shelter that was hit by a tornado. They shipped it up here. She rescued it. And the dog is terrified of everything. And understandably, you know, if you're in a building that got hit by a tornado and you didn't know what was going on, I mean, you have to ask yourself, she's a lovely person who's going to give this dog the best life it can possibly have. But is this dog going to have the best life because of what happened to it? I don't know. So I think if you have a nice, healthy young puppy and you can give it a good home and lots of exercise and lots of love and play, I think that's a win.
Yeah. And one more thing, let's just talk real quick about, we just touched on that for a second, is that the quality of life that we give our pets shouldn't affect the quality of life we give ourselves. And I think that's like a really tricky thing with rescues and elderly dogs and dogs that have cancer, or all the cats too, right? But when it affects our own well-being and we become like this martyr and we sacrifice our own needs for, I guess not even pets, but people. Like we have to understand that there's a line that we need to give ourselves oxygen, the oxygen mask first.
Yeah. I often, if I'm with one of my former employees, something happens and, you know, the owner makes a decision that is counter to what is in the animal's best interest. A lot of times I think to myself, well, they're not taking care of themselves either. You know, a lot of times you can look at people who don't take care of themselves and know that they're not taking care of themselves. So why would we ask them to take care of a pet because they don't have the skill set to be good to themselves?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, as you work on being a happier, healthier person, you're probably going to end up being having a happier, healthier pet.
Yeah. You're making me really happy that when I was a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian. And I think it's got to be such a hard job because of that situation where like you see it all.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That's one reason why I retired. I mean, as much as I loved being there, it's really hard on the vet too. I mean, for a long time, I would never cry during euthanasias because I didn't want the owner to feel bad for me or take their focus off of their beloved pet. And then, I don't know, at some point I just started crying during euthanasias and I said, oh, I don't know how good this is for me.
I do think having a community like the community that I have at the dog park, you know, we not only share stories about our pets, but we share our lives, you know? That community support is so important, you know, when you're going through all kinds of grief. So even though you're here talking about pet grief, like grief is just a normal emotion. And I guess at the end of the day, we get to decide how we work through that. But as long as we're working through it, that's the...
Yeah, if you don't have your pet, your anchor, of course it's harder.
Yeah, and then you lose, you know, like for instance, at the dog park again too, it's you know, when your pet passes, you lose your friends, but you can still go there, you can still donate to the shelter, you can still do all the things.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, we used to love when our clients would bring us blankets and things and dog beds they didn't need or want anymore. So, you know, we would launder them and then Fluffy would have, you know, we put the bed in with the cat and the cat was recovering from surgery in a big comfy bed.
Yeah.
So those things were really nice.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to kind of add to our conversation about pets and grief and taking care of ourselves?
No, I would just say that most of our clients, after we had been through something, we would send people a sympathy card and we'd always make a donation. We either make a donation to plant a tree, or we'd make a donation to a companion animal fund. And the staff, we all really appreciated. People would write us the most beautiful thank you notes and send pictures. And actually, it's really interesting that you said that because I am unpacking my office this week and I've kept every single thank you note and card that I ever got for a client in 30 years. And so it's been wonderful to go through those and think about it. So, yeah, I would just, and sometimes that can be helpful with grief too, is like thanking the people that helped you.
Yeah.
So we always appreciated the heartfelt letters and thoughts for us because, yeah, it's hard. It's hard on my stuff. It's hard. So
It's that gratitude again.
yeah,
Or we haven't even talked about gratitude, but gratitude can help get you out of grief.
right.
Yeah.
Zooming in on
Zooming in.
on those moments that brought you happiness.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, is just focus on the things that do make you happy and,
Yeah, like I like petting dogs' heads. I know, Jake. I wasn't even aware I was doing it, but you were right there, and it's very relaxing for me.
Yeah, he's got a big noggin. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mara, for spending time with me today. And so how can people follow along with the Plutz build? And it's not even called that anymore. So what is it called?
Well, so we renamed it the Foxfire Building of Baraboo after Jennifer Fox. And Foxfire is kind of a luminescent green. It's a moss that grows in the forest.
Oh, okay.
And you see it sometimes at night. And so we painted the building the color of Foxfire, and we like the serenity of, the earth and grass. So that's kind of how we came up with that. So if you want to follow us, we have a web page. It's the Foxfire Building. We're on Instagram, Foxfire Building. February 1st, Jennifer Fox is opening a new floral studio and gift boutique called River. And we're having, she's having her grand opening, and we're having an artisans market. We're calling it Love Fest.
Love it.
On February 1st from 10 to 4. There's music, gifts to buy for your loved ones. Come in, see the building. We're happy to give you a tour so you can see what we've been working on and our ideas. And we'd really love seeing everybody if they have time.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Steph. Appreciate it.